Hi, I'm Gail. I'm codependent, and I always forget to pause for that. Thank you. I have been involved in CoDA for like the two and a half years, but this is my first retreat. And they would announce the retreats, and I'm like, what's that? You know, where do we go for that? So I just saw the announcement a few weeks ago. I'm like, okay, you know what? It spoke to me. I'm jumping in. So I'm really glad to be here. But I kind of felt that I should share like my journey. So I feel like my journey is old. Even though I've only been in CoDA 2.5 years, I feel like my journey is more than 30 years old because I was in my late 20s examining, and I'm the kind of person that I want to examine why this is happening to me, what is going on. And I really like the idea that you might say to yourself, what is wrong with me? Gosh, what is wrong with me? Well, how about there's a book out there that says, what happened to me? And I'm like, oh, this is like what I like to focus on. What happened to me? Why do I respond this way? Why? I just ask a million why questions about myself, and I have a need to know. I have a giant need for validation and all these things. So I look back and I'm thinking, this is what's happened to me. My mother, I was the unwanted child. Even though I was 2 of 6, inexplicably, I was unwanted. So, and she said it so many times in my young teen years to many people. And if you look up what the unwanted child, their symptoms, so to speak, I'm like, oh, check. Like, why? It doesn't make sense. And so I kind of really look at that and like, how can I get past that? You know, I have to have a lot of self-love. Well, one of the first things of an unwanted child is you don't feel loved. You don't feel lovable. And I married 42 years ago an amazing man who does not have one bone of codependency in him. He's non-judgmental. He's kind. He listens to me. Nobody listened to me in my childhood. And he would just, oh, tell me more about that, and listen to me. And I thought, who are you? Like, don't you want to like interject or contradict me or tell me why I'm wrong? No, he just listens to me, which is totally amazing and it's been a huge blessing to me. We have 6 children, and I'm one of 6, so we have that. We have that going, and so I worried, like, once we got married and started having children, I'm like, oh, I'm not passing on this chaos that I grew up in. I'm not passing it on. So I was like the self-help guru, like read all these books. So I knew very young that Codependency No More by Melody Beattie, I believed her. Like, I'm going to get this book. I'm going to read this. I'm going to do these things, and I'm going to be okay. So that's kind of how I live my life. But when you have a whole room full of children and laundry and dishes and meals to be made and soccer practice, etc., you're like on the run. And so I spent my life in doing, and thought I had done the hard work, thought I had done the grieving of kind of how I grew up. And we moved around the country, and each time we moved, I would feel like I'm going to crash after a period of time, or after I get settled, then I'm going to have this crash, and I never understood it. And it's kind of like after the holidays, I'm like, I'm going to crash, because I was like going. January, you just plan on it. You're going to crash. And so we moved here 3 years ago in the middle of the pandemic, and that was my worst fear. I'm like, I am totally going to crash. So what's that going to be? What's that going to look like? How am I going to pull myself out of that? And I was very happy with where I was. I had many friends, but I was near the family, which was hard. And I was trying to not let them affect me, but didn't know. My husband would be like, oh no, they're fine, or we can go over there. And I'm like, don't you see what they do? And he's like, you know, it's like he's so nice that he can't think that somebody would purposely try to hurt you. And so when we moved here, I felt a giantest aloneness that I've ever felt. I felt the most self-criticism that I've ever felt, and I didn't have a job to do. So I quit my job, moved here. I didn't have a job. My husband retired, so he was now he would go to the grocery store every day because he's going to go to the gym and go to the grocery store. And so, I'll just cook dinner too while he's at it. And he'll pick up the kid from school, and I'm like, you are leaving me with no task to do. And that is like the worst thing on the planet. Like, you don't need me. I don't have any value if I am not needed here to do these things that I've done for 40 years. And that was like, so I had to look at myself and go, what is going on? Like, what has happened to me? Instead of what's wrong with me, right? What's happened to me? So my oldest daughter is actually in a 12-step program. And she said to me, when I was telling her, okay, this thing that doesn't make any sense and why I'm feeling this terrible thing, she said, Mom, you need to talk to somebody, and I believe you need to go to CoDA. And once she said that, I'm like, I knew it. I'm like, I'm gonna go. I am 100% going to be committed. I am tired of the roller coaster of my life, feeling like I did a little better. I improved upon this. I grieved over my childhood. I gave my mother a pass. Oh, now I'm resentful towards my mother. No, I'm not. Oh, she didn't mean it. Oh, maybe she did mean it. Now I'm mad again. So I just was always on this roller coaster and not really being able to understand what is in my, feeling myself. Like, what do I really want out of life? Who's the real me? Like, I didn't know. I spent my life serving everyone else and not me. So, so when I went into CoDA, I'm like, I'm gonna get a sponsor today. I'm gonna get the workbook. I'm gonna work it. And it was a lot of grief. That first, the 4th step was extremely hard. My sponsor had me do the 4th step in resentments. And she said it was kind of the AA way to look at what are your resentments. And that really made me spiral. And I felt a lot of grief. And I felt like, how can I possibly feel more grief? I thought I grieved. I thought I grieved when I was in my 20s over my childhood and over how I've been treated. But I still just had so much grief and so much grief work to do. And so as I did the steps, I'm like, I am totally doing these steps, but I drug my feet on the 4th step. It took me like 3 or 4 months, and here I'm like self-judging. Part of me going to CoDA was like, it's a judgment thing. You have an addiction. Like, I had this giant judgment around addiction. Like, if I'm not using substances or drinking, or I have never done that, well, then I'm fine and I don't have an addiction. And so I realized when I'm going through the steps, oh, I get it now. Addiction is very different than what I thought. And so embracing the idea that this is an addiction was a giant hoop for me to jump through. And it's been interesting to accept that. So a lot of the things that I've learned, acceptance has been very valuable. One of the things I've appreciated most about the retreat is coming into a room of this many people and feeling like every person that I have talked to, and we've shared a little bit about something that's happened in our life, I'm like, they get it, you get it. Like, we responded in the similar manner. When you've had trauma in your life, people respond in different ways, but in this room, it seems like we responded very similarly. And then that makes me feel, well, like I belong somewhere. Like, I'm amongst the people that really can know and understand, and I can understand you. And I appreciate that so much. So after doing the steps, then they asked me to be a sponsor, and I was noticing how sharing at the meetings really helped me to kind of solidify in my mind how I was feeling about things, and I felt like I did a giant step forward once and I would share every meeting. And I noticed in my group, they have a online Marco Polo group, and so you can volunteer to do the topics every day for a week. And when I would do those, I'm like, wow, I just made so many discoveries, and it felt like I jumped so much more, and my recovery was so much better when I was giving service and when I shared. Speaking it out loud was something that wasn't allowed as a child, and so speaking out loud here and then feeling no judgment, just feeling love and acceptance is a giant healing thing for me, and has been a giant healing thing for me. So my CoDA journey has is just, even though it's been a couple years, I feel like I've worked on myself for all my adult life. But I feel like this is the leap that I needed to really get me back to my authentic self. And I appreciate the retreat, and I appreciate you all being here. Thank you.